Hey folks, if you're on the call and you haven't muted your phone, if you could either push mute or push *6, we really would appreciate it. Some background noise coming through as we get started. Excellent. Gene, are you on the call?
Yeah.
All right. What do you say we get started? It's right at the top of the hour.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Welcome everyone to the Inner Circle 2017 webinar. We're just going to roll through the program in its entirety. I should preface this by saying there are not a ton of changes for the smallest newsrooms. So if you have heard all this before, there will only be a couple tweaks, but there are some new wrinkles. So it is kind of imperative that you join in and take part in the presentation. At the end of this, I will send out the entire slide presentation to everyone, as well as the video. So if you'd like to pass this along to others in your newsroom, someone who you think is not steeped in the program, please feel free to do so. And also, I should also point out, if you ever have questions, please feel free to reach out to either Gene or myself. We'd be happy to help you at any time. Some folks routinely check in with things like whether or not they're sure if something has been an in-depth news story, or their tone on Facebook, or various things. We'd be happy to help you. That's what we're here for. As I tell folks all the time, this is not a punitive program. We try as hard as we can to make this as much a model for success, not one for failure. So we do appreciate you joining us today. We'll roll through these slides kind of quickly. Gene and I'll just kind of bounce back and forth through this. I've been with the company now for just over 2 years and this will be my 8th or 9th now Inner Circle evaluation I'll be a part of. And Gene, of course, has been with Gatehouse. Oh, geez, how long, Gene?
9.5 years.
9.5 years, and you were part of the original Inner Circle evaluations way back when. So we have covered basically the whole Inner Circle gamut. We can help you with any questions or concerns, also best practices and other fun things if you need help. So like I said, feel free to reach out. The key this year, over the past year or two, there have been quite a number of changes to Inner Circle. Part of that is just the fact that we have grown as a company so much. We've tried to add a number of new wrinkles. I would say that this year, much like the first few years of the program, am I right, Gene? Continuity is kind of the key here. We're keeping a lot of the same pieces in place as we did last year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that part of that is 2016 compared with 2015. 2015 was like a lot, and it was very, it was very different. This is very digitally focused, and we didn't want to move, radically away from what we just did, because we know that it takes time to adjust to this new stuff and figure out how to manage it in your newsroom. But yeah, so definitely we didn't want a radical departure.
Well, and we'll get started with the actual the program in just a second, but I think this is so important. Something that Gene and Bill Church have kind of talked about consistently over the last month. In 2017, really Bill's push, and Gene's as well, is to two things: do journalism with impact and embrace our future. And I think that even though this program has been pared down for the smallest newsrooms, we really have tried to maintain the focus on that. I think you'd agree with that, right, Gene?
Yes, definitely. And the thing about Inner Circle is, a lot of people ask why we do it at all, and I think the biggest reason is that we have priorities, we have things that we think are just really important for newsrooms to be doing, and they're not really all that crazy or weird. They're pretty much like, we should go to Facebook, because it makes a lot of sense, because a lot of our traffic comes from Facebook, and Tim will talk about that a little later in this presentation. But these are just things that we think that as newsrooms we should be doing. There's no doubt about it. And when Bill Church started, and took over from David Arkin, these were the two goals that he had in mind. And what was really nice about it is, without really changing the program very much at all, and actually we changed it before he was on board, but these two priorities are really a part of what we're doing here with Inner Circle. So you'll see like Embrace Our Future, a lot of the digital stuff that we're talking about, and Journalism with Impact you'll see in the new kind of version of Index.
And I might point out that the person out there who has a horrible cough, and I feel for you badly, if you'd please mute your phone or push *6, that we'd really appreciate that so we don't all have to listen. Going back to some of the important pieces in terms of looking into 2017, continued audience growth is just something that's so important. I know that Jean and I talk about this consistently. Penny Reardon and I do as well. And these initiatives emphasize through the program, try to drive time on site and also maximize social media engagement. These are all very important pieces. And by the way, in terms of the muting of your phone, if you could do that, we have 130 people on the call and Jean is at a remote location. So unfortunately, I can't mute all of you like I typically would. So if you just make sure that you push mute. Folks?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And also, I think something that's really important in terms of Jean saying in 2015 to today, we really have recognized that these smallest newsrooms maybe have the most difficult time with some of these Inner Circle initiatives. So we've tried to pare this down to the absolute essentials. These are the pieces that we think really you need to be doing, or not, maybe we don't feel that way, but the editors who were involved in the Editors Council, folks like Bill and Jean and others have all, talked about this at length. These are the pieces that you really need to be doing to make sure that your newsroom can be successful in the future. And going to that field feedback, Jean and Bill and previously David, one more time, if you could please mute your phone out there, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We did, as we always do, try to get a number of editors, a focus group of editors from different markets, some big, some small, on the program. I know that a number of changes were made, both from 2015 into 16 and 2016 into 17 on that editor's feedback. Some of the smallest newsrooms have had some of the biggest impact in terms of driving the program. Some of them saying that pieces that we've eliminated in the past they wanted to maintain. I can tell you that we'll get to Twitter in just a second, but originally we had talked about taking the Twitter component out of Inner Circle for 2016, and a number of smaller editors said that it was an important piece of their social media strategy and they didn't think that it should be removed. And now this year, folks have maybe said after looking at some of the data that wasn't the case any longer, but I thought that was really interesting that some of the smallest newsrooms have had a huge impact. And so I'm going to let you roll out the changes that are some of the changes here, Jean.
Okay, so as Tim just referenced, we did decide this year, and based upon feedback that we got from small paper editors as well as larger ones, that we are eliminating Twitter as an expectation. Now, the thing about that is, it's really important to be on Twitter. This is not minimizing that. But what we noticed is that referral traffic from Twitter isn't very good. Now, there are sports people who love Twitter because they really are able to engage with their sports athletes. I mean, a lot of high school kids are on Twitter, and you can communicate with them. If you're tagging them because you know their Twitter account, they're going to retweet things. They're going to, it's just a great way of having a conversation. We don't want that to go away, but the thing that we noticed with Inner Circle is that people who were on Twitter, we felt they understood the value of it. So keep doing Twitter by all means, but we're just not going to be looking at it anymore for Inner Circle because we feel like when we first introduced it many years ago, it was just a completely new platform, and you needed to be on it. It's very newsy, it still is. So please continue tweeting, but we're just not going to be looking at it in Inner Circle. The second thing is that there are fewer categories for every newsroom this year, for 2017. And that includes for the smallest papers. So we're going from 5 categories in Inner Circle to 4, so that'll be good news for you guys. And then, of course, we have changed our index category for the smallest papers. There's a lot of confusion about what is index news, and we really want to take that out of this equation. What we want the newsroom to be doing, and especially the smallest newsroom, is to be doing explainer journalism. Now, this is a really hot thing right now in journalism, but all it really means, and it's what it means on all of our lives, is we're focusing on the how and the why. How does this affect me as a reader, and why should I care about this? what does it mean to me? So instead of just simply reporting what happens in your town, we really want you to get under that and help readers to understand how it affects them. And we'll talk about the specifics with that, but we think this is going to be a really manageable way of handling this. It's still we still want some depth, but it's really about explaining the news to our readers and going that extra step.
And on the flip side, you should know, as many of you are either partnered up with bigger newsrooms or have worked in some of our bigger newsrooms before or may in the future, one of the initiatives, or the in-depth initiative, has changed as well for them in terms of, we used to just have a larger number of our in-depth stories that they were required to do each week, and now that won't be the case. The number will be pared down quite a bit, but we're looking for really enhanced packages, weekend in-depth packages that dig a little bit deeper or have digital components and all kinds of fun stuff. So we've really changed that category for newsrooms of all sizes. In terms of that field feedback, as Jean said, some small newsrooms have just talked about the fact that they're overwhelmed and it becomes really difficult for them to adhere to the program. And we don't want that to be the case. We want this to be something that every newsroom, even if it's a one-person operation, feels like they can be successful with a little bit of planning and hopefully some guidance if necessary, pushing them in the right direction. And this again promotes quality above quantity, which is really important because some newsrooms really only have a body or two or three. It also talks about the increased digital presence that we hope you have. At the biggest paper levels, that means more digital tools. In your case, that really just means making sure that we have a great social media strategy and that we're pushing out important content on a daily basis, making sure that we're engaging with readers as often as we possibly can. And like I said, we want your input. One of the things that I've noticed is folks come to you after the fact and say, hey, I did something. Does this work for this category? That's when we have a little bit of a problem with something, because it may not. And the fact that you're coming to us at the end of a quarter or after a quarter really isn't set up for success. If you have something that you'd like to try that's out of the box, if you want to be part of the program in the future in terms of interacting with us and becoming a member of the Editors Council, that's great. Please reach out to either Jean or I. We'd love to hear your input. We'd love to help you get the resources that you need to make sure that you can follow through on this program. Whatever it is, we'd like to be there for you. So we really are accessible. We want to hear anything that you have to say. Also, I should say, the entire handbook is located down at the bottom of gatehousenewsroom.com. As a matter of fact, it was the 2016 version until today. Jean smartly caught that I had the old handbook down there. If you click on the bottom right corner of gatehousenewsroom.com, you can access the Inner Circle notebook at any time. You can also pass that along to anyone in your newsroom who needs to see that as well. And as for the actual expectations, and I think that you can see by this slide, we really are trying to make this as meetable for small newsrooms as possible. In 2015, like Jean said, there were just a number of things. Scene on scene, reader engagement, we still had Twitter for reporters. Now we pared that down last year to just 5 things, and now with the elimination of Twitter for reporters, you're looking at just 4 expectations. Really, even those smallest newsrooms can focus on and make sure that they're doing the 4 things. If there are some of you who are new to the program, or if you're a new paper that's just become part of the family, welcome first off, but really this lets you make sure that this is a priority, that these 4 pieces are a priority heading into next year. And I think that each of them is an important piece of the puzzle for your success. Now, the one thing is, because there are only 4 expectations, much like last year, used to be you could pass if you were missing a couple things. That's no longer the case for the smallest newsrooms. You need to hit on all 4 pieces to be able to get past for Inner Circle. So that's something that really it's important that you hit on all 4 bases, because there's no leeway at all. And actually, I'll have you go through staff size, Jean, if you don't mind.
Sure, that's fine. A lot of times people ask us, well, what actually are you looking for in terms of staff size? So if you have a part-timer, for example, does that count? And the answer is, if you have 2 part-timers, that equals a full-timer, or about that, those would be people on your payroll. as part of the newsroom. But really, what we're looking for is mostly full-time employees in your newsroom who contribute to the editorial product. This does include newsroom assistants. A lot of newsroom assistants can give you some help with Inner Circle. So we found that that's really valuable and not something to be overlooked for sure. So not included though is designers. And the reason we took designers out, that was last year, is because we do have a lot of, we do have some of these papers that are in our Center for News and Design, and it felt kind of unfair that certain newsrooms were like in a higher category because they still had designers, and other newsrooms, were being done in the P&D. So we just took design out of the equation here, even though they might be able to help you too with some of this stuff. So, but a lot of times the print designers are not that involved with what we're doing with and a lot of you in the smallest newsrooms, I know you do your own design too. So we just thought we'll just take that out of the equation. But so anyway, so we've got full-time employees, not included are designers. Obviously, like, if you're talking about your whole newspaper operation, ad reps, people who handle classifieds and all that, that none of those folks are included. We're really looking at newsrooms as freelance staff, so just your stringers, your correspondents, those do not count in any way. And in terms of open positions, and we know that sometimes we're carrying open positions around the time of Inner Circle, sometimes people just send us an explanation of what's happening with that. If you have a position that's been open the entire quarter, you don't have to count that because that position didn't help you at all in terms of Inner Circle. But if you know you're just about to hire somebody, and think about that for the next quarter. I mean, basically, if a position is open but occupied for most of the quarter, like you just lost somebody, we'll count that one. You know what I mean? So it's just pretty logical. But if you have any questions about this when you're filling out the form, like you're just not sure what you're supposed to put down there, just let us know.
And that's an interesting point you bring up.
Right at that point.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Gene, because so many times that note at the bottom, I know these are a pain in the rear to fill out once a quarter. I know this isn't your favorite thing to do, folks, but it's so imperative that you take an extra couple of minutes and give us any explanation. If there was somebody out on maternity leave, please go ahead and tell us. And anything along those lines in the notes at the bottom is just so important in case we're judging something and we have the wrong facts and figures. We want to make sure that you have every opportunity to pass and become, part of the program, so that you're on the good side, if you will. And we want to just make sure that that's the case. If there is a chance for that to be, if someone was out of the office, put it in a note at the bottom. We'd be happy to make any. We'd be happy to use that knowledge as we're doing our evaluations. Okay, on to the actual expectations for 0 through 2 person newsrooms. One news video per week, and we'll get into each one of the categories very quickly in just a second. One piece of explainer journalism per month, and I really think this is something that's very manageable, even for the smallest newsrooms. One thing to do, like you've been doing, hopefully in your newspaper and online per week, and also 2 Facebook posts per day. And when we move up to 3 and 4 person newsrooms, we're now talking about 2 videos per week, and hopefully all of you have tout. If you don't, we can talk about that in just a minute. Explainer journalism, we're now talking about 2 per month. Things to do still make sense to do 1 per week. That's why it's up there. That's something that readers have told us consistently that they're looking for in their newspapers. And Facebook, 3 posts per day, which is really quite manageable. And on to the 5 through 8, we're now talking about 4 videos per week, just about 1 per day. Explainer journalism now steps up to 1 per week, so typically 4 in a month. Things to do would be 1 per week still as well, and Facebook, we're talking about 4 posts per day. Now, video, so important to our overall strategy. It's just something that we continue to strive to do better. I know that this has been something that some folks have said in the past is really difficult to get to. We've really tried to keep those expectations to a reasonable level. If you're in a newsroom, especially with some of the folks who now are down to just a handful of people in their newsroom, or 1 or 2, really 1 video per week with the tools available like Tout, really something that's very manageable. As you see, when you get up into the biggest newsrooms, 50 plus, those folks are those are now expected to do 25 videos per week. So that's quite a significant haul. And why is video so important? Well, I'll turn that one over to Jean. She knows all this stuff better than I do. But boy, it's really important in terms of page views and increasing our engagement time, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And you can really imagine how time on site, it's really important. I mean, we're not just after like getting some random clicks from people. I mean, what we want is, especially, I mean, you think about your community and you are the source of local information for your community. We just want to make sure that we're right there for our readers. And so video is just a different way of telling a story. It adds a layer to a story. And if you have a story and it's matched up with a video, that is where those videos really do best. So think about that when you're out doing a story. What kind of layer can you do with video? How can you enhance that story? And the newsrooms that do best with this really make video a part of their planning. I mean, they think to themselves, how are we going to do this? I mean, a lot of times with Inner Circle, we really want it to be manageable. We want people to be able to, to be certified. But what's really important here is how can we communicate with our readers? So, what we're finding in our industry is that younger people, they watch a lot of videos. They watch a lot of videos on their phones. So it's a huge part of our mobile strategy to have videos. And it's just a great way to tell stories. And, whether it's breaking news, sports highlights, feature news content, videos really are popular.
And obviously having good technology is very helpful when it comes to that. Tout is a way to be able to shoot and edit videos. It hopefully has made your life easier if you're out in the field. One thing that I will tell you is, and this will go into the evaluations, it used to be that we would go through and count every video in your bucket. That's no longer the case. We now get the numbers from Tout. They're automated. So it's not really something that in the past we could, we'd fudge a number here and there if you were missing by 1 or 2. Basically, this is a very simple process. Now the number comes in. If it hits the number that you're supposed to meet, you pass. If not, then you fail. And in terms of shooting video, obviously, this is a great video from the Destin Log. I think they have 1 person total in their newsroom, a plane crash video. Many people have talked about the fact that they now use their videos as a means for recording audio for their stories. What a great way to do that, to work it into your workflow. If you can shoot the video and then go back into your own newsroom and collect quotes that way, that's something that you can absolutely do and then use it. And you're obviously already on your way to meeting that goal, which is really a smart way to do it. Also look for motion and emotion, both important things. Make sure your top stories have video as well, especially in our template. Photos and videos obviously look so great in our new template. And as sports videos count, for smallest newsrooms, sports videos, entertainment videos, anything counts. So all videos are in there. Make sure that you're getting some up on your website. Here are some ideas for you, by the way, and I love the Pocono record with the aerial yoga folks swinging in the background. Fires and crashes are obviously great, but so is weather, before and after, business features. Sports is an easy one. Folks are great at doing that. And again, if you're gathering quotes after a game, why not just take it as a video? And then that's a great way to compile those quotes. Coach and athlete Q&A stuff, construction project, all great stuff. So here are some ideas. And if you're having problems coming up with ideas, again, reach out to both Jean or myself, and we will be happy to help you along the way. And here's a perfect example. I wrote a piece for GatehouseNewsroom.com a couple weeks ago about the Havelock News. 1 or 2 people in that newsroom, I want to say 1 reporter and a half editor. They produced some awesome videos, including this one, Gator in the Garage, which was an award winner for us here at Gatehouse Media. Basically, the evaluator's checklist is very simple. If you have enough, you make it. If you don't, you don't. It comes in through Tout, and there's no length or production requirements. We're not. If your video is 20 seconds, then it's 20 seconds, and it counts as a video. Because Jean doesn't want to have to go through every single video. No, I'm just kidding, Jean. That has nothing to do with it.
But wait, before we go on to Facebook, there was something that Tim said, and I just want to emphasize it. If you have a top story, think about video for that story. That's where it's going to count the most. One of the things that we noticed, and Penny Reardon, who does a lot with video, goes through and looks right now at what top stories we have in the company and how many are matched up with videos, and we're really lacking in this, in this. Now, that won't affect your inner circle, but we have you on the call, and we're really excited to share this with you. You need to have video with your top stories, your best stories, your biggest stories, so think about how you can do that.
And that's what's going to have the greatest impact. Facebook, the daily expectations remain the same from last year. Facebook is just so important, especially for you folks in rural communities that as you start to look at some of the numbers, we'll talk about this in just a second, but it's incredible the amount of referral traffic we get from Facebook. And so taking a couple extra minutes, I'm not talking hours, I'm talking a few extra minutes, recrafting a post, trying to take some guidelines into play when you put these out really makes a humongous difference. I'm talking about, like, here, this is the Alice, Texas newspaper. They are notorious for incredible engagement, even though the fact that they're a very small newsroom. Here's a picture of cloudy skies above a playoff game. 276 people have liked it, a number of shares, comments all over the place. And really, when you're talking about, and of course this is just 2 per staff, so your newspaper, if you're the smallest, is 2 per day total. That's not unmanageable, and it's a way to really engage your community, and it's also a great way for reporters to find sources. You can also just drive conversations. I've seen numerous newsrooms who have started opinion topics on Facebook and then use some of those pieces on their opinion page. There's just a number of different ways you can use Facebook, and it's a really important piece of what we're trying to do. And as Jean talks constantly about, as she's talking about digital next and all kinds of fun digital things, this is it right here, right, Jean? I mean, trying to find out when people are online and making sure that we're posting stuff at the time when they're most available.
Yeah, definitely. And Facebook is, that's kind of tricky. They change their algorithm here and there. But one of the things you want to do is, if you're putting something on Facebook, make sure your readers are there. So, like right now, most of the time, we're seeing that people are on Facebook in the evenings. A lot of them at lunchtime, too. There will be a blip there. But you can go into your insights on Facebook and kind of see what your audience is doing. But you can imagine, you sit in front of the TV and we watch a show, we're watching a game on TV or something like that, and we have our phones out and we're on Facebook. This is our audience. That's the prime time to get your content in front of them. So be sure to pay attention to that time.
And one of the keys on this slide, posting a mix of content types, questions, links, statuses, photos, videos, really trying to keep things fresh on Facebook will help you. When we look at some of these places, Alice, Texas, Northwest Florida Daily News, some of our papers in smaller markets that have really found incredible engagement numbers on social media, it's usually because they do a great variety of things. Alice has not only cop stories, but they also have good sports stories. They also have, it's just a very well-rounded, some great photos from in their town. Northwest Florida is wonderful at that. They engage folks with some great pictures of their beaches and some of the things that they have to do there in the Destin, Fort Walton Beach area. That's just an important piece, is making sure that your social media strategy is well-rounded. You're going to get the most engagement if you do that, and if you consistently hit different sectors in your community. In terms of our checklist, you have to post every day to Facebook, and that's 7 days a week. If you have to plan it out, that's fine. Schedule those things out. If you're the only person in your newsroom, you schedule those things out throughout the weekend. A lot of times, I always use the suggestion, if it's a Sunday and there's a farmer's market in your town and you have a previous photo from the farmer's market, go ahead on Friday afternoon as you're leaving in that one-person newsroom and make sure you get that up. But it needs to be 7 days a week. And also, newsrooms need to be running a Facebook business page, not just a regular profile. I think most of you are at that point and have done that. Now, one new wrinkle to this for the 2017 Inner Circle program that we have not done in the past is those who fail this initiative, they'll be asked to self-report a number of posts for each month by the next quarter. So if you fail in Q1, throughout Q2, you will have to, on a monthly basis, self-report, and we'll offer you the means to do that. There's a way that you can go into Facebook and get your all of your metrics. And editors will be sent a form at the end of the month, but we'll ask this through publishers to make sure that we see and that you see the number of Facebook posts that you're doing each month. It's really for your own good. If your newspaper is to succeed, chances are you're doing well on social media, and chances are you're branding yourself well in the community. This is really just to help you, and that's maybe a way to do so is by self-reporting. And we'll do that through the publishers. And then in terms of statistics, and Gene, I'll have you talk about this. I mean, the numbers that we get from Facebook are just really impressive, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. So it's about the second bullet says about 23% of all of our traffic comes from social media, and that was in November, so just last month, and this is according to Google Analytics. But what's really impressive about Facebook is that 91% of the social media referral traffic, so people clicking on links to get back to us, come from Facebook. It's just huge. So again, just why it's important, it's where people are. It's where our audience is. And it's just a great way to reach people. I mean, the thing that we talked about with Facebook, too, for years is just how awesome it is that you can put something out there, and if someone else shares it, not all of their, people who follow them on Facebook, all of their friends can see that as well. I mean, it's just a great way of introducing new people to you, and also to, to get fresh eyes on your website.
That's just a huge number, 91%. Okay, now let's get to explainer journalism, which we really have boiled down to its essence for the 1 through 8 newsrooms. And as you see, 1 for the smallest, 2 for the 3 and 4 person newsrooms in terms of monthly expectations. Then you get up to the 5 through 8, and you're talking about 1 per week. What's the difference? Well, you know what? I'm just going to start this, but let Gene take over. But the key to what we've been looking for in the past with in-depth news, and sometimes we've been worried that maybe folks have lost, especially in small newsrooms, have lost their way because of the name in-depth news. We weren't looking for, 15,000 word opuses on things that are going on in your community. When you're a 1 person or 2 person newsroom, that's really unmanageable, and we weren't expecting that. What we were looking for was something that that shows the impact, or an impact that's taking place in your community. So that the way that we've changed this is, as readers have told us before, they want to know how the news affects them and why this is so important. Well, we've added this into essentially a breakout box that gets inserted into your story. Would be a standard breakout box, but has 2 pieces to it. First, the issue, and then the local impact, or why it matters. This is really a way for you to boil stories down, and not just boil them down for your readers. Sometimes it's important that reporters do this as well. We get so bogged down in meetings and council things, and going to an occasional planning and zoning meeting or a school board meeting, and we lose sight on the issues that are really important that have come from this. This hopefully will help you to boil that down into what the biggest issue of the day was and what the local impact of that will be. And the key to this is this can be any story. In the past, this had to be something that was reporter sourced. It had to be something that you had thought about and were planning out for weeks in advance, or hopefully were thinking about for a long period of time before you actually followed through on the story. That's not the case with this any longer. If you can show us those 2 pieces in a breakout box that go with any story, that will qualify for explainer journalism. Right, Gene?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we definitely want this to be, as I said in the beginning, explaining the how and the why. So not just focusing on the, who, what, where, when. I mean, all of that's important, but we really want to know how it affects readers. Readers want to know that, and so what we're going to be looking for when we evaluate, we still want you to have, it needs to be a multi-source story. I mean, 2 sources is the minimum, but please look for other sources as well. And then just that local impact is again, really fulfilling one of Bill Church's huge priorities for this year. You're going to be hearing about it more and more, but it's doing journalism with impact. So we really want these stories to be resonating with readers in any way. So there's an example here that talks about just, let's say that your town is looking to pass a 3% tax increase. So the why it matters, or the local impact part of it is, what is the city doing with that revenue? I mean, that's a great little piece for a breakout. And also, here I am, like, I own a house in town, and how is it going to affect me? An average tax bill will go up this amount, and you can say what that average house, value is, so that people can know, okay, mine's a little bit less, so I'll probably pay a little bit less. Oh, mine's more, and I'm going to pay this much. But, just explaining, like really breaking it down for readers to say, is this going to affect me, and how? I mean, people really want to know about those pocketbook issues. They want to know, how much something is worth.
And it's such a great drawing point into your stories as well, especially if it's on the front page of your paper. That's just a great way, to get people in. That's going to get them started. And as Jean said, I mean, still, at least 2 sources is so important. I mean, I've talked with some small newsrooms before who've said they just don't have the resources to get out and get 2 sources on a certain story. There's a cutoff point where journalism really, you need to focus on certain things. One of them is making sure that you get well-rounded sources, balanced sources, and that in the case, like we've said before in the past, getting 2 sources and one being the police chief and the other being the assistant police chief, well, that's not really 2 sources. That's just one entity, and you're getting 2 different folks from that. So try to get as much balance as you possibly can. Like we said, we'd love to see you get 3 or more, but understandably at least 2 to pass for Inner Circle. Okay, on to things to do. This is basically a carryover from last year. Hopefully this is something that you're all doing. If you haven't done this in the past, you'd like to reach out, we can provide you with templates for this. We have some here at the CND. This is something that our readers have told us, or not just our readers of newspapers in general. Some of the research that we've dug into, folks have said this is one of the most important things that you can provide for them. So hopefully we're doing on a consistent basis. For all of you, that would be once a week. And also, when it comes to how you do it, for some of the smallest newsrooms, we've said 3 things. For some of the bigger ones, 5 things is wonderful. There are some perfect examples. I think for the most part, Jean, we've seen most of the folks get this correct, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is one that you guys are doing well, and your readers thank you for it. I mean, you can approach it in a lot of different ways, but depending on how many things you have to do. But we definitely want at least 3, and I think that. Just giving people options is always good. So it doesn't work if you just give us a story on something to do this weekend. So it really needs to be in this sort of list, alternative story format kind of look. So that's important.
Okay, there are some questions in the chat box, but because I want to send this out to everyone and have others watch it who couldn't attend for today, I'm actually going to pull those all out and then answer them one by one. I'll include them in the email that I send out to everyone, which I will do in just a little while. I'll also include this video. I'll include the slides. You can pass it along to anyone you'd like to pass them to in your newsroom. And like I said, if you have any questions, Jean and I are always available. A number of folks lean on us for answers when it comes to Inner Circle things. We'd like to be there for you as well. So please feel free to email either of us. She has a more professional headshot than I do, but that doesn't mean I won't answer. And I just think that really as we pare this whole thing down to just 4 components, it really is something that we're trying to make the smallest newsrooms get the best chance for success. Right, Jean?
Yeah, absolutely. So please ask your questions. Ask them early, especially if you're like, wow, we haven't done this explainer thing before. Send us a quick, link to something. Send us, something that you can say, is this kind of what you're looking for? So that we can give you some feedback early on. So this is something that we just want you guys to all get your certificate and be in Inner Circle for sure.
Thank you all for listening. The questions that you sent, I promise I'll have answers for by the end of the day. And we wish you the best of luck in 2017.
Okay.